I've been meaning to make one of these videos for quite some time. Only now I have some stories to tell. Although I believe some of you might have crazier stories you wouldn't tell your therapists or lawyers. My crazy love adventures only began when I started living alone in the city. Like a millennial Carrie Bradshaw that makes stupid cartoons for the web instead of writing for magazines. I was super happy when I was fooling around with this vegan American lady around the year 2020. However, the story I'm about to tell you is about this young Ukrainian or Romanian girl that I met around September of that same year. I say she is Romanian even though she has a Ukrainian passport because her entire family spoke Romanian. I really thought I was going to get married to this girl. I call her a girl because the American lady was born in 79 and this one was born in 97. You do the math. After our first date, she started living immediately with me, which was a red flag that I ignored because the sex was amazing. 1 month in, she tells me she is pregnant. She told me on our first night together that she was on the pill. After 2 pregnancy tests and a trip to the doctor, I got the news she was 23 weeks pregnant. The baby wasn't mine. She told me the father was a married man and she couldn't confront him. However, I knew she was hiding the truth. Either she didn't really know who the father was, or she just chose me to protect her from whomever was using her. Since she was saying she wanted to give the child up for adoption, the red flag was too big to ignore. This happened during the winter of the start of 2021. I made this drawing of her while at a coffee place because she didn't want to be stuck at home. I took care of her while she was gestating a child she wanted to give away. We even rented an apartment in a different city for the last months of her pregnancy so that no one would see her big belly. She kept all this secret from everyone. I was an accomplice. We bonded and fell in love, but I was always suspicious of her. Like, how could she not take care of herself or think of any consequences? I didn't care. I was too far in to quit at this point, so I became a simp. I'd like to explain that the motive for this video is simple. I'd like to share my story in an artistic way. Even if it's a true story, I'm going to be protecting everyone's identity. My family says, at least you saved someone's life. I can't tell you much about the baby she abandoned. Let's just say, the baby is in a better home and has a better mom. Because in the words of the biological mother, she didn't care if the baby is alive or dead. This girl, let's call her Mimi, never got my full trust. The problem is, she is super charismatic and beautiful, and I still have feelings for her. However, let's now talk about how it all ended. So, after a lot of adventures post-birth, we ended up going to Switzerland to live with her parents to set up a clothing business. It sounds good, right? What if I tell you there was no real plan, and that the company was going to be used for money laundering, and they wanted to use my name for the accounts? Yeah, I never let it happen, obviously. But I'm still holding on to emails that prove that they did identity fraud, pretending to be someone that didn't exist, and that their plan was to sell fake luxury items with altered labels to the Kazakhstan embassy. The money laundering red flags were present since the beginning. I remember one Christmas, Mimi's sister buying nearly €400 worth of scratch cards. I left during the night after Mimi and her sister left me alone with their parents to go for a trip in America. It was crazy times. The texts her were sending each other were not very pretty, and I will assume that I could have handled it better, but I was broke and feeling scared. Her sister paid for my flight back home, and that was it. I knew I was out. I ate McDonald's and boiled eggs for 2 days. This is an AI representation of me hiding in the airport bathroom while eating my last boiled egg. During this ordeal, I was reading Orwell's first novel, Down and Out, Paris and London. If you know this story, you'll know how meta it was. I survived. Cheers. Put a finger up if you had cocaine, weed, ecstasy and alcohol in one single day. So this girl was one of those rave girls who had a group of friends that let the FOMO set in and tried everything while they were still super young. She studied classical music from a young age, but as soon as she found herself as the vice president of the student association of her college, she found a taste for power. She found out that beer was the thing that brought money into the venues she helped produce musical events. And from there she jumped to being a barmaid. Typical, right? From Miss Eastern Europe to dropout bartender. One of her friends, the worst one, was always talking about ketamine. Disgusting. Mimi and that friend had already had drug-fueled orgies together. I heard so many weird stories about them, it's hard to explain. Anyway, when I thought they wanted to have the same type of experience with me, I was excited but very scared at the same time. I ended up having sex with Mimi in front of her friend that one night, but I never touched her friend. During our time together, I was always feeling like she was only with me because she owed me for helping her. There was no love, only lust and secrets. As I told you before, Mimi was very good in bed. In the first few weeks after our first date, she was pulling me aside while in public, putting her tongue out and asking for my milk. Obviously, she made me very happy and manipulated me so I wouldn't leave her during the time she needed me the most, her pregnancy, which I had no idea of yet. She played the perfect trophy wife. But as time went on, after the pregnancy, I started getting to know these stories of her and how people viewed her. I remember hearing a client from the bar saying she posed for him, and I should be careful. Anyway, during our first summer together, we went to Ukraine to go to her cousin's wedding. We stayed in Kiev, where we landed, for 2 days. After sightseeing a bunch, we were scheduled to go on a private bus towards the city where the wedding was going to be. We drove for a full night. Why did we go to Kiev after all? To pretend they are Ukrainians. Because their entire family actually live in the border with Romania, and they all speak Romanian. I really felt there was a culture of lying and pretending. Her family was very big and came from nothing. I remember hearing them speak proudly about illegal activities. One could tell this was the source of Mimi's problems. Mimi had daddy issues because he always treated her and her sister as a little princess, probably until she became sexually active. And Mimi's mother was crazy possessive and a sociopath who was born in a very poor family with a lot of siblings. It's understandable, but still crazy. I present to you now a drawing based on some recordings her father showed me of the time she won a Miss Eastern Europe contest when she was only 13 years old. Just so you know what she was taught since an early age. Well, this is it. There is more to tell, but I must leave it at that. I hope you were entertained by this story at least. I learnt a lot from this 3-year adventure of mine. Stay safe, cheers.